Hello, good morning. Welcome to our channel. My name is Emma. I have a 10-month-old daughter named Wren, and today I'm going to talk about low milk supply. So if you're first time here, I talk about motherhood, solo motherhood. After traveling to over 60 countries, I finally found home. So we talk about home and finding home. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I had a baby by myself as a single mother by choice. And we live in 275 square feet in California, and this is our life. So I recently made a video about receiving donor breast milk, and it's been such a wonderful journey, but I thought I would talk a little bit about how I got there and how I got to looking to outside sources of breast milk to feed my baby. So I was probably the mom who wanted to breastfeed so badly. I was reading all the books while I was pregnant, and I was convinced and dedicated to being able to breastfeed. And people said to me, Emma, if you want to breastfeed, then there's a good chance you'll be able to breastfeed. And so I did all the research, did all the the books, the La Leche Club, and did as much research as I could while I was pregnant. Show up my daughter, who was tiny and mighty, born at home, and on our first night at home, we were left. And it's typical, right? Midwives don't stay overnight if the birth went according to plan, which this did. It was a relatively easy birth. And I was trying to get her to latch. And for any of you moms out there, yeah. So I totally underestimated the challenges of latching your first baby. Even after doing tons of research and talking to tons of people, it was so hard. I guess I talk about this in other videos, but I also had the worst hemorrhoids my midwife had ever seen, so I couldn't sit or walk. So I guess the birth was pretty smooth, except for that fact. So sitting and nursing was impossible, so we were trying to do the side lying latch. And again, this is like advanced breastfeeding, according to most people, but it was my only option. And so there we were on a video call with a midwife in the middle of the pandemic, trying to get my baby to feed. And she did. She latched eventually, and I think she was able to get some colostrum out, and I massaged my boobs and the colostrum came out, and I knew all the research about, or I knew all the information about early breastfeeding and how it's not this your milk doesn't come in until day 3. Anyway, so skip forward a few days, my milk comes in, she's latching, she's drinking, but she's unhappy. And lots of babies are unhappy, but she was drinking the milk, eating the milk, drinking the milk, and it was torturous. And so I spent the next 2 months, 2.5 months, almost 3 months, going to see all the lactation consultants, going to my midwives, talking to my mom's group, getting all the tips and tricks, and just trying to feed her without screaming. Not me screaming, although I definitely cried a lot, her screaming. And again, she was latching and she was definitely drinking. My milk came in. I wasn't pumping. I'm a solo mom and there wasn't anybody else to give her a bottle, and I was under the impression that giving a bottle too soon was detrimental to the breastfeeding journey. In hindsight, I might think differently, but that's where my mind was at the time. And so I just wanted to breastfeed, and so I was breastfeeding all the time. I keep track of everything, which I talk about in other videos, and I was breastfeeding 20, 25 times a day, which in hindsight sounds insane, right? I just was constantly, because she seemed hungry, right? So her diaper was clean. I know that she slept. She was actually a decent sleeper, 2 hours, yay. And so she was sleeping and peeing and pooing and all things according to, the stats or whatever. She was gaining weight. So there was no problem, except the fact that she was screaming on my boob all the time. I was told by my midwives that this was her personality and that she's just chatty as she screams. I was told by lactation consultants, lactation specialists, that she had a tongue tie, a lip tie, that she had acid reflux, that she had a milk protein allergy. But again, I am the queen of research, and yes, Google can only go so far, but she didn't have any other symptoms. There were no other signs or symptoms of these things. So one night in desperation, when she was she must have been about 8 or 9 weeks. We moved here when she was 6 weeks, and so it was when we were here. I had a doula, postpartum doula, come and help show me how to pump. And so I pumped about 3 or 4 ounces, I think. Again, a bit of a blur, but I pumped a couple of times while the doula was here, and I put it in the fridge in a bottle. In a Dr. Brown's bottle. This was like, you know, the one that was recommended or whatever. However, I was told that the first bottle, it's important for somebody else to give it to the baby. Now again, I'm a single mom, so there isn't anybody else to give the baby a bottle in the middle of the night when she's screaming. And so it was gonna be me, I suppose. And so I was hesitant. And also it was only like 3 or 4 ounces, right? A little side note, I wanna talk about pumping. So pumping. Lots of moms pump. This is like the reality of going back to work or having a partner give a bottle, or oversupply or undersupply, right? Pump more, get more, pump more, get more. That's the mantra, right? And I gave it a concerted effort. The reality was that because I wasn't going back to work in the traditional sense, and because I didn't have a partner, and because it was just me, my thinking turned to the fact that I was taking away time with her to pump. And while this might have led to a greater milk supply, it was taking away from my quality time with my kid, and I wasn't about to get up in the middle of the night to pump. And I had no childcare, and so it's not like I was away from her for long enough. So instead of pumping, I would just breastfeed, right? Because isn't that also get more milk out, have more milk? Isn't that the idea? So I did try a number of different pumps, a number of different strategies, power pumping, pumping after I fed her with all the, you know, tools or whatever. No dishwasher, which means I was washing. There's also this strategy where you put it in the fridge and take it out again. I did. I gave it a concerted effort, as any 9-week, 10-week postpartum mom could. And so I had the help and tried the pumping. So I had this like 3 4-ounce bottle in the fridge. After I'd like given her everything I had, I gave her this bottle. And I have never seen, I mean, there was no hesitation. There was no like, ooh, this is the bottle. This isn't the boob. It was like, give me the food. And so she just chugged it down. And to be honest, she was more content after that. Not for very long, but you could tell a slight difference, right? Where she had had this amount of milk on top of what I gave her. And so, hi. Yeah, she's here because she's always here, but she is fully naked, so she's not going to be on camera today. Hi. I know, we're almost nap time. I know. So I was like, oh, okay, I suppose I need to feed the baby. Now, of course, I had kind of come to the conclusion about pumping, so the alternative is formula. Again, some of my closest mom friends have done formula from birth. Some even decided to do it with the second child, even without trying breastfeeding. There's nothing wrong with formula. I just really wanted to breastfeed. This is my choice. It's, I had a choice. We were breastfeeding, right? She was latching okay. And it was painful. And I kind of hated it, which is hard to say. The irony of motherhood is that even the things that are really hard, we tend to like or want. Leaving her is really hard when I leave her at childcare now. And I miss her like crazy, but I also am so glad to see her somewhere else and to have a little bit of space. So I hated breastfeeding, but I really wanted to do it. And I didn't want to stop. And so I went to a pediatrician, a lovely pediatrician who is no longer a pediatrician, which is like a whole other story, and a very common story these days with healthcare. And he was just like, think of it as calories, just feed the baby. And so I had a friend come over and help with the first bottle of formula, and she chugged it. She downed it. I mean, she just drank it up like a champion. It might have been like 8 ounces after I had fed her. Hi. And so it was a lot, and she finished it like a trooper. And then a few hours later, right, she seemed hungry again, and so I breastfed her, which she was really excited about, and screamed, and I probably cried again. Boo. And then I gave her some more formula, and she just chugged it. And that was that. And so my baby was eating a lot, and she was like 10, 11, 12 weeks old, and according, right, to all the averages and everything, she was definitely eating more, because all the lactation specialists, they do these things called weigh feed weigh. I don't know if you have this where you are, but where I am in California, we have a lot of really lovely support and these, you know, specialists. And so you go in, you put the baby on the scale, and then you feed the baby, and then you put the baby on the scale. And it's supposed to tell you how much they're getting in each feed. Now, when I went, on average, she's getting about 4 ounces. So if I'm breastfeeding 8, 9 times a day and she's getting 4 ounces every time, apparently, that's like 30 ounces, right? And so according to the statistics and the numbers or whatever, you know, that would have been enough for her, but she was still screaming and unhappy. With the formula, she definitely started to scream less. Again, her sleeping was generally okay, so that wasn't as much of an issue, but she definitely was screaming less. And also, to be honest, even when she did scream, it was easier for me when she was on the bottle rather than when she was on my body. Screaming on your body, like you're like, you know, nursing, giving her the boob, and she's screaming at you when people are like, oh, you know, breastfeeding's so glorious. It's such a lovely, like, you know, wonderful exchange of, you know, energy and feeling between a mother and a baby, and there she is screaming. It was a lot easier with the bottle. So I was pretty glad to give her, you know, the formula. Her poops changed, which I suppose isn't a big deal to most people. I had seen and experienced breastfed poops. And I do all the changing of the diapers and stuff, and so it was definitely a shocker for me. And yet we were doing better. And she was eating so much more than anybody could even imagine. I even had, you know, midwives or other moms be like, are you sure you're not overfeeding the baby, right? Now, she was born in the 3rd percentile. And at 10 months, she's in like the 70th percentile, which, no big deal and also amazing. So yeah, she was hungry and she wanted to grow and was needing to grow. And you really can't overfeed a baby. If she was in the 90th percentile and she was eating this much and she was like exponentially gaining weight, then maybe there's like an issue. But she was so tiny that honestly, it didn't matter how much she was eating if she was happy, because that is what we need to do. And again, it baffled my mind, it baffled other people's minds, and yet we were doing better. And I realized that my baby was hungry. The final like thing for me was, you know, what is motherhood? Motherhood is Google. You know, I don't have aunts and grannies and mothers and, you know, wise old women sitting around with me. When I gave birth to her, it was the first time I held a baby that small. I had never seen a newborn breastfeed before. I didn't have this kind of tribe around me of elders, so to speak. And so I didn't really know what, oh, I lost my thought. I lost my thought. Crap. So Google becomes this tribe of elders where you're just researching everything and anything. And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. And sometimes you're in a rabbit hole at 4 a.m. trying to figure out what is going on with your kid or with yourself. And yet I came across this like random post somewhere where another mom had mentioned that her kid also screamed while being fed. And it took giving them a bottle with a larger flow so that they could get more milk out of the source. And that rung a note with me, that resonated, because one of the things I've learned since then is my kid is hungry and likes to eat quite quickly, and my flow, my letdown wasn't quick enough, fast enough, often enough, and so she was always frustrated at the boob. And it is, yeah, so she just, you know, you learn. I didn't know this at the beginning. I don't know anything about this kid, you know, she's been inside me for 9 months, but like, you know, I don't know as much as I would like to think that I know about her. And so I learned that this is the way that she likes to eat. Now that we're doing solids, you can see it. She just like shoves the food in her mouth and eats like a trooper. And it's amazing and baffling to a lot of people because, again, she eats a lot. So Google. One of the things that I really wanted to get through on this video was when you are early postpartum, one of the most obnoxious things you will hear is, you know your baby better than anybody else knows your baby. You are your baby's expert. Yeah. You are your baby's expert. And I was like, screw you. I don't know anything about this kid. You're the specialist. You're the expert. Tell me the things. What am I doing? What do I need to do? How do I do this? What am I doing wrong, right? Like, you feel clueless. And I felt clueless. I felt like I should know, but I didn't know. Again, it's so much trial and error, and experiments and theories and things like that. And then this happened, and all the experts and all the specialists were telling me all these other things, and I figured it out. I figured out that my baby was hungry, and that's it. She was hungry. She didn't have a lip tie. She didn't have acid reflux. I just wasn't producing enough milk from my body, which is a whole other like mom guilt conversation, which I'm sure will come up, especially when you did all the things. I did all the things, at least I thought I did all the things. How come my body couldn't keep up with her appetite? And when I got over that, I just started feeding her. And I have this thing on my door. It's a big like piece of paper, and I've written various things, and one of the things is feed the baby. Now, I will show you this. The other thing is babies are so great, because it was really hard in those where I wanted to believe the babies are so great and that like early newborn stage is so great, but boy, was it hard. So feed the baby. And when a mom offered me some breast milk, bags and bags and bags of frozen breast milk, I took the opportunity. And that's how we started our journey to donor breast milk. So there's often talk about high supply or big supply for breastfeeding. And then when you have low supply, it's all about pumping or giving up completely. And I took the middle ground. I took the middle road, which was I kept breastfeeding even though I was supplementing so that I could continue the relationship with my daughter. Also, because of all the books I've read and everything, I understand that it really helps with her immunity, her biome, her gut, our relationship, and you know, knock on wood, so far 10.5 months she hasn't been sick yet, and there's a lot of reasons for that, I'm sure, but I think part of it is the continued breastfeeding that we do. I started to look at it like snacks and, you know, just time spent together. And because she was fed with a bottle with other sources, she became more pleasant when she actually came to the boob, and I started to enjoy breastfeeding. So it took until she was about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. I want to say maybe 4 months, just around the time that the sleep regression that we had, which was quite bad, set in, that breastfeeding started to be okay. And I can breastfeed at night, which is so much easier for a single mom. I don't have to make a bottle, prepare a bottle, figure out a bottle. I can just stick her on the boob, and that's that. So that's made my life a lot easier, having kept breastfeeding. And I'm not sure when we will stop. At the moment, we do it as snacks. So I don't try to feed her per se, although, you know, she's snacking a little bit when she comes to me, to the breast, after naps and when we wake up and stuff. And otherwise I feed her. Now she's doing 3 full meals of food, and we're only using a little bit of donor milk at night, the bottle at night. So she's got 1 bottle at night. So yeah, and we're probably transitioning pretty soon. But yeah, it made a huge difference to both keep breastfeeding for convenience, but then also feed the baby with another source. And I figured that out without having to put her through any surgeries or any medications or anything like that. And before I bring her to bed, oh, there she is. Okay, you're only gonna go from the head up because you are butt naked here. But yes, so she is a happy baby, and she's chunky and she's delightful. And yeah, that's our life. All right, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe if this resonates with you, and ask me any questions. I'll link some of the things I mentioned down below. And thanks again. Bye. Is that Mama's hair elastic?